using Elasticsearch heavily in our infrastructure. So I said, why not try that out? And we did. We've got certain use cases also that we'll show you what we've done and how it's helped us, and probably it will help you also. So I'll just start with the presentation. That's about us. I think I've told you a little about us and what we are exactly doing. So agenda of today, so before I even begin, how many of you are familiar with Elasticsearch and the Elastic Stack? Then accordingly I'll tune myself whether I need to get into those details or not.
Elasticsearch.
Okay.
Elasticsearch.
Alright.
Elasticsearch.
Okay.
No ELK, not the whole stack. No.
Alright, so then I'll just go over the stack also a little bit and what exactly each section does. So just to begin with. So a high level architecture is, how many of you using Apache HTTPD? I think most of everybody will be using web server, right? So what we're doing is that we're passing those logs coming from Apache, and these are our custom logs coming in from a database, or a Polar system is something that we keep. So supposing we have an X amount of system or a Y system, you can put that as a database, you can put that into a custom log as well, right? So we poll that system, we fetch the logs, pass it into a Logstash. So how many of you are using Logstash? Okay, nobody. So what Logstash exactly is, it's an accumulator for logs. We write certain patterns on those logs. So here I can get any kind of log. So an accept log, a deny log, any kind of logs will be coming in. So I don't want all those logs coming into my system, right? So I put a grok pattern there. So how many of you know what a grok pattern is? Okay, so just explaining a grok pattern. A grok pattern is a simple regex. What I'll be writing, so supposing if I'm getting a log saying date time, getting a log saying accept or deny, I will simply write a regex pattern saying, okay, I only want accept logs coming in. So what Logstash will do is get all those logs, filter that out for me only into the accept logs, put it into the Elastic system then. Alright. From my Elastic system, what I'm doing is that I am passing it into Kibana. This I'm using for dashboarding. So my visualizations all come here. And ElastAlert is helping me just to alert bases on all that data. So just imagine I have a huge amount of data coming in. I filtered out what I need. I pass that into a, call it a database, but I won't call it a database, I'll call it a warehouse rather, right? So how Elastic exactly works is, I'm going to tell you, but a simple amount is just based on indexes. So I have a huge amount of heterogeneous data coming in. I build simple indexes based on that, put it into my system, and then for visualizations, I use Kibana, and for my alerting, I'm using my ElastAlert. So a small overview of what Elasticsearch exactly is doing is that I'm sure you all know it's written in Java, and so like I spoke about, it just continues on, it works on heterogeneous data, a lot of that, and real-time ability, yes, definitely, because it's coming into the system at whatever pace you're defining, right? So it'll come into your system as and when your logs are getting pumped in. And also it has a REST API. I'm sure whoever's worked in Elastic will know what a REST API is. I'm not going to get into details because I really want to show you what ElastAlert is going to do for us and the power of that. So we can talk about all this later on if you have questions about the architecture. So as I mentioned, Logstash also is just going to take all those kind of logs that you're passing in, filter it out based on grok patterns. So basically you have an input. A lumberjack is basically a Logstash format itself. So you can have a file coming in, you can have a Logstash, you can have logs coming into the system. You put your filters accordingly, accept, deny, whatever I want. And you output whatever the data is coming in. So now I'm only getting my accept logs or my deny logs coming in. And Kibana, like I said, it's a very powerful dashboarding tool. So I pump in all that data, now I want to make sense out of it. I want to see what that data is, so I start putting it into my dashboarding tool, make indexes out of it. So what an index exactly will be is that supposing I have, say, how many of you watch movies over here? Everybody, right? So supposedly I want to divide those movies saying into Bollywood and Hollywood, right? So I have an index called Hollywood, I have an index called Bollywood, right? So then I can slowly start segregating my data, so I don't need to look up, even after Logstash, I don't have to look on that entire data set. Also using simple APIs such as curl, I'm sure everybody's used curl over here as well. So curl is a simple command where I just fire it on, so because it's supporting REST APIs, I just fire that command, it gets me my data, and I can just manipulate my data on that simple curl command. So even the GUI that you guys use on Kibana, it just forms a curl command at the backend, fires that command and gets you the JSON for that. That JSON actually just gets passed on Kibana itself and it shows you the dashboard. It's as simple as that. So I'm just going to hand it over to Kunal for Last Alert. He's just going to help you out with that.
Hello, good evening everyone. So ElastAlert is basically a framework written in Python to query on Elasticsearch. So why use that? Because Elasticsearch stores all that data indexed properly, right? So we needed somewhere we could create alerts on that so that we could find anomalies on that. So ElastAlert is somewhat similar to what we wanted. So it's a simple framework for alerting anomalies, spikes. So it has various types of filters that you can use for alerting. There are spikes, there are frequency based, cardinality based, we'll come to that later. Then it works by combining Elasticsearch and two types of components, rules type and alerts. So these are the basic two components that we use, rule types and alerts. So what rule types does is we define as to what rule we need to basically work on. So let's say your Apache access logs, right? They go into Elasticsearch as one document, one single log file, log line will go into Elasticsearch as one document, all segregated out using Logstash, right? So Logstash basically converts that single log line into a JSON document with properly indexed key value pairs as to, let's say, the HTTP verb, that is get, post, then what was the content size that was returned, the URI, the referrer, everything gets passed into a JSON document and gets stored into Elasticsearch. Using those key values, we can create rule types as to what we need to actually monitor in that document and creating an alert on that. If something breaches our threshold that we've defined, so we'll create an alert on that. Alert also comes in various types, emails, then Jira issue, whatever you want. Then how ElastAlert works is it periodically queries your Elasticsearch. So in your configuration of creating an alert, you define as to at what frequency do you want to actually poll your Elasticsearch instance. So for a given threshold, right? So let's say if I want my data to be analyzed on a daily basis, right? So at every minute. So it will go every minute, query the Elasticsearch a day back, and then probably check whatever data is coming and then filter out on it, create an alert and send it to me. Right? When a match occurs, it is given to one or more alerts which take action based on the match. So it's possible that once some, let's say, anomaly gets triggered, right? So you can have multiple alerts for them, either email issue or Jira issue, whatever you want. You can just fire them up, and it's not just required you just set one. You can set multiple of them. They'll all be triggered in parallel and sent back to you. So moving over, so these are the rule types that are there in ElastAlert. So any basically will say whatever document type that comes to me in a given threshold, right? If I said, okay, every 1 minute take a data 1 day back and analyze it. So any will say if any data comes to me, I'll create an alert on that and send it to you. So any rule will match everything. Every hit that query returns will generate an alert, right? Then we have a blacklist, whitelist. So we can specify if any key value pair is what we didn't want to be coming, right? Let's say if you have an Apache access log that has get and post. Now you are saying we don't want any head request coming, or let's say any options header coming onto my access logs. So you can just simply say if a blacklist is there, any of these verbs is coming to me, just alert it to me. Similarly, whitelist, we can whitelist if any of these does not in a given list, if we receive something except from that list, alert it to me. Then change is one of the critical ones we use. Change is what it does is it will monitor as to it will fix a key. Let's say if you have a get request coming, right, and you know a referrer to that request would be usually same, right, and just a normal use case, right? You can say if for a HTTP given verb get, if the referrer is changing quite a lot, then alert it to me and within a given time frame. Right? So that's what change does. Frequency also says if the number of given events are above a threshold in a time limit. You're currently getting attacked by a bot, right? You expect your server to receive about 10 requests per second, but now all of a sudden you're receiving 100 requests per second. So that's what gets counted in frequency. Spike is a time window based thing. So spike, what it'll do is you will specify I can receive about, like in frequency you specify what is the minimum threshold that you need to be alerted on, right? Spike says if I was receiving about 5 requests per second, and I'm saying if a spike of 5 times 5x, that x value I specify, if I receive a spike which is 5 times what my expected value should be, that will alert to me in a given time window. Then flatline, it says if something is going on constant, like give below a given threshold constantly, that is an issue. Then new term, it says, new term is a very good thing to do, because what it does is it says, okay, if I'm expecting, let's say, a parameter in my get, right? A get parameter called abc equals to 1, 2, 3. I'm expecting abc parameter to receive either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's all in a numeric format, right? All of a sudden, I'm receiving abc equals to xyz, which is a non-numeric value. So what it will do is it will learn as to what values I was receiving over a period of time, and after that, if I receive something new, which was not expected, all of us in our access log, it will create it on that. And cardinality says the rule matches in the total number of unique values, right? It will say not just on the combined access log, a unique values of various things within a certain field within a time frame higher or lower than a given threshold. So in cardinality, you can specify if my threshold goes above, or a threshold, if my value, that unique values goes below a certain threshold, then alert it to me. So these are various rule types that you can create, and then these are the various alert types. So as I told, ElastAlert has two components. One is a rule and one is an alert. So previous were rules, this is an alert. So after you, let's say one of these rule types got matched, and now you need to take action upon it. So you can have these all types of alerts. One is a command. You can simply fire a Unix based command. In your, basically all the config you do in ElastAlert is a YAML based file. Anybody familiar with YAML? Right. So all these YAML files, so you can specify what command you need to run. Basis of that, you can use all those documents. So basically the alert that you get would get the JSON response from the anomaly that you receive, and you can use that to fire a command on your system. Probably you might require it to send it as send mail on your own Unix server, right? Then email also, email is like you can specify what your SMTP host will be. Let's say if you have a segregated mail server, you need to use that to sending mails. You just specify your SMTP host and specify the recipients to this anomaly, you will receive it. Then a Jira issue, you can directly link it to Jira. If you have a Jira instance deployed in your environment, you can straight away fire a bug into Jira.
Jira is a bug tracking software for those who don't know about it. So you can track your bugs, etc. So I can just simply fire an event. It will create an event. It will create a bug ID for me. It will fill in all those fields. So you don't actually need my intervention anywhere. It can directly go to the developer to fix.
Right. So Jira similar to open source Bugzilla, right? So you can have defined if an issue comes, let's say pertaining to one domain, I know the assignees to that will be such specific group of people in my organization. So I can simply raise an issue there in Jira. And one Obscene is also some node operations tool which we are not familiar with, but it's also integrated that. So coming next, we'll be showing some use cases that we've done. So we have 4 use cases. 2 of them we can demo it to you. 2 of them will just be probably showing you some images and going over as in speaking about it, because that's some critical information we can't simply just show it out, organization information. So we'll move over to the use case 1.
So any doubts on how the stack is working out on anything? So any questions based on that?
One question.
Yeah, sure.
Is it capable of accumulating logs from multiple web servers?
Yeah, sure. So basically what you're doing is you have one Elasticsearch instance and you have multiple systems from where you're receiving logs, right? You can have one Logstash instance to which you will be sending your logs. That Logstash instance will be sending all those different logs to your single Elasticsearch instance.
So coming back to that, you
have
can
to manage
many
to send
servers,
that.
Apache can be multiple, your Logstash will be one, you can have multiple also running this in a cluster.
These inlet sources can be n number of sources you can have, right? And while you're creating this in a Logstash instance, when you create an input as to what you are receiving and once you filter it out, when you're putting it into Elasticsearch, you can define what tagging would be done to a log from one of the servers. Let's say your server is 172.16x.x, right? You can specify that this log was from x.x system, and in your Elasticsearch, then you can see the type of, basically the document type would be x.x, and that you can see the access logs, right?
Any other questions before we begin use cases?
All good? Okay. We'll be moving on to practical use case. So, use case 1. So our first use case was credential sharing and authorization bypass prevention, right? So one of our tools in our corporate environment requires a single user to be authorized to access that application, right? what happened was people started sharing it, since it's a quite a critical tool to get all the business information out from one web
It basically
web
had all our
application.
databases, all our company side databases, etc. So all kind of customer information was lying there, right? So certain people do require access to that to interpolate
Probably
reports, etc.
Marketing people require it to get email IDs for mailing marketing mailers, right? So that's a web interface for querying all our production databases, right? So that requires specific people to access that system. And now, since let's say someone who person X actually requires it, we provide him authorization. Person Y who is not authorized to use it, what he'll do is he'll use credentials from person X and then use it on his own system.
I mean,
right?
who hasn't shared credentials right now, right? Everyone does.
So that's one use case that we're trying to do. We'll show you a demo of it, right? So we'll be switching over to our systems.
Let's just hope it hasn't timed out the Wi-Fi crazy kind of discounts, right? So the hoteliers that we have on our site listed there, they thought that why should the customers have all the fun? I think we should also, right? So what they started doing was they started using the app codes that we were giving them discounts. So basically, if your room night, so supposing you're booking a hotel for like 5,000, the customer was actually paying something like 2,000, and we were actually as a company giving the hotel still that 5,000. So we were putting 3,000 from our own pocket, right? So what the hoteliers started doing was that they started making bookings based on, they made fraud email IDs. They made like hundreds and hundreds of fraud email IDs. They started acting like customers, booked their own rooms, right? Nobody stayed in those rooms, so they got free money for that. So supposing if I have an inventory of like 50 rooms, I booked 49 rooms for myself, and they were getting that money from our company, so they were actually making profits out of that. And whereas MakeMyTrip was making huge losses, why? Because there were no customers actually, and those guys were getting all that 5,000, and we were actually putting in 3,000 from our own pockets as well. So imagine this happening on a mass scale. So then we thought, okay, we need to do something, and so then what we started doing was that we started making ElastAlert, working on that. So what we said, okay, against one email ID, we started seeing the booking history. Okay, so we said, okay, fine, this is a genuine customer coming in from a single IP. So I would know, supposing if you were a genuine customer, I would know you would come in from like X or Y amount of IPs, right? You won't be changing your IPs too often. I mean, okay, fine, maybe 10 IPs, 20 IPs, but not more than that. So what we started doing was that we started seeing hotel IPs coming in, and from a single IP, we were getting over 1,000 bookings. So I was like, okay, this is not a company, this is not a firm, so then why are we seeing so many bookings coming in from this? So then what we told ElastAlert was, from a single IP source, if I see one email ID coming in, or say about my threshold I set as 10 or 20, seeing the historic data, I said now if my booking started coming in like terms of 50 or 100 or 150 or 200, send me an alert. So we started getting alerts based on that, and trust me, we got a huge amount of alerts. So I'm not saying that we don't receive false positives. Yes, we do receive false positives as well. So we have to keep fine-tuning a system. Like any machine learning system, I'm sure you would have to fine-tune it. But the kind of alerting that it started giving us, we started catching such frauds. And believe me or not, we found 200 hotels which don't even exist. I mean, they were listed, they didn't even exist. So we were like, okay. So that's how it helped us. So coming back to the use case number 1.
I think it's the YAML file looks like. So you can specify a rule name that you will get as a title on your mail, right? Which says new user login. Basically, my credential sharing use case that was there, I named it new user login. Then it has a defined type called change. Basically, this will be of the rule type change, right? Then on my Elasticsearch instance, I can see my index is named logstash underscore my client. So this is what I named when I created the logstash to pump my data into Elasticsearch. I named my index like so, right? Then this is what it looks like. So compare key says I'll check for changes in this value in my document. So if I can show you the document. Right, so if you can see here, so this is my Apache access log that's passed into my.
So it's come from the Logstash, come from Elastic, been JSONified, and now you're seeing
Right.
that.
So you can see everything is segregated. You can see my client IP, which is the actual user's desktop IP, right, which was used to access this application. What was his username in my access log, right? We have usernames logged into my access log. So this was the complete log that was there, right? And I can see it's there for multiple people. So this one was for 4611, this one was for 5128, right? And the IP also varies. So this is what we've tried to change here. We've tried if my client IP, that is this field, the host IP changes pertaining to my query key, that is auth, this line. Oh, highlighting it. Query key auth, right? So it says if my client IP changes in two documents where my auth, that is the username, was same, probably I'll need an alert on that. So that is the situation, right? Two people having two separate systems log in using a same user account, both will have different IPs, right? But the access log will say user 1234 logged in with one IP with second IP, right? So this is what I tried. I said within a time frame of 1 day, query a time frame of 1 day and check if any of such events occurred, right? And alert it to me using an email. I'll highlight it. I'd say alert, send me an email which says email to two recipients, right? And also I defined a SMTP host, which was my own SMTP server, right? So now if I can show it to you, I'll log into my, so I'll be using Dhruv's ID to sign in. Right, so as you can see, I've signed into my system using Dhruv's IP. Now he'll be signing into his own, from his own system using the same account. So I think he's signing in. Right, so he's also signed in. Now once that alert gets triggered, I'll show you. Oh, probably I'll run it again. Right, so you can see it found this last two lines. Right, if you watch the last two lines, it said queried rule new user login from timestamp. It found two hits. It sent an email to this, and it created one alert. Right. So this is what happened.
Sorry to interrupt, but are you on the same network?
So we are connected to our Office VPN.
So we're connected to the tool that we've actually got this.
No, if you are on the same, I don't know, same network Wi-Fi, you are using public IP must be same.
No. What it does is we are connected to our Office VPN. Our Office VPN assigns us two IPs of our internal domain of MakeMyTrip.
So his
right?
IP is currently different, my IP is currently
Different on a MakeMyTrip network, and our tool receives that VPN ID.
But suppose two persons are sitting in a cyber cafe.
Right.
It is supposed to have the one network.
Right.
And you must be getting the
Right, public IP remains same, right?
Yeah.
So this use case was specifically in a tool where we
This
required
tool-
internal IP.
This
Okay,
tool
the
is only
same user
hosted
must
internally.
Right, same user must log in, right?
The tool is internally.
So I'll show you the email I received. So this is the email I received just right now. You can see it says Elast alert new user login with the user ID that I logged in, and it shows that I had two different IPs. The first value that was logged in was 1096. The second IP that I saw for this same user was 172.16, right? So this helps us eliminate those, credential sharing things. So if a
So
person,
even in case you're on the same and my public IP is still the same, so then I can set up, instead of just checking auth, I can also start checking my public IP as well. So I build a rule accordingly to that.
Static IP in Office, not DHCP.
It is just
so
DHCP
yeah,
based.
it's DHCP based, but the renew lease is quite long. So probably once you are in the office, most people use their Wi-Fi's, right? So they are connected to the same access point. They get a single IP that remains constant throughout the day. So there are those edge cases which happen where the user system IP changes and then that gets flagged. So that's what we are trying to do. We are correlating with our DHCP logs, trying to find out whether that IP was assigned to the same MAC address or not. If
The routers.
right, exactly.
So it's,
Yes.
it's basically a lot of correlation, and I'm not saying it doesn't generate false positives. I mean, we've seen false positives also come in, but it's just to get you, like, you have to start fine-tuning your system a little bit after that.
Okay. Right, so that was use case 1. Now we have use case 2, which was bot detection. This is one of the most critical cases that usually happens in an e-commerce or any public site that you have. You become famous, you get a name out in public. bots start coming, trying to fetch data from you. It's like, happens. You are
I mean,
suddenly
we see
seeing a spike
scraping
in your.
happening throughout the day. I mean, throughout the day, we see scraping happening on our
Right.
side.
So this again was done for an internal application, not just for external. We handle separately. This was as a POC stage done on our internal system. So again, I created a different rule for it, which I'll show. Uh, Oh, sure. We'll talk about it. I'll show you what an alert comes like. So alert is something like this. We've created another YAML file of the type frequency, right? And I've defined if at least 10 events occur within a span of 10 seconds, right? From a same user ID, right? I get a user ID, MMT, whatever, right? I say if I receive 10 consecutive events from the same user ID, from in context of the same user ID, within a span of 10 seconds, send me an alert. Probably that might be a bot, right?
So how we can actually start taking care of this in real life is that what we see is a similar IP hitting us on a similar URL to a certain extent. So supposing our search URL is like google.com/search, only that search parameter is changing, but everything else is same, the IP is same. Now okay fine, 10 requests, 20 requests is same, but if he's hitting us 100 requests in like 10 seconds, something is wrong definitely.
So that is what we tried. So as you can see in this, I can see my user ID was constant throughout this log auth, right? So you can see it was my ID that was constantly triggered and says at least 10 events occurred between this time frame, right? So this is kind of what we can do for bot mitigation. Once we get this alert, we can flag it out as to who was trying to do this, get back to him or not. Right, so that's what is
and
done.
if you're using a very basic system, just block in on your IP table, something like just a very basic system. I'm sure everyone has their.
It's a Unix system, right? You can deploy a IP table, set a rule, block that IP, go about it, right? But people are smart; they change their IPs. Tech already. Okay, the third use case, which is quite an interesting one, if it plays, I think, yeah. So again, we couldn't show you the exact data that we received, but it's a snapshot of that information. Once a user signs in to one of our sites, right, he has a public IP that's there. A cookie gets assigned to him that says, okay, this is the user that you were trying to log in. Now, in this, I've clipped most of the data that was sensitive, but you can see I have two source IPs, two public IPs. One is 101.187, one is 46.239, right? But using Elasticsearch data enrichment service, what I can do is I can add a GeoIP information for the single IP. And as I can see that this 101 IP was from Australia, 46 IP was from Iceland, right? So once this is there in my Elasticsearch, I can create a rule in ElastAlert saying if I receive, so basically there was another key to it called my cookie that was received using the database, right? So if that cookie is constant and my country name changes or my IP also changes, right? If my country or IP changes, I need to flag that probably my user token is being stolen and used, like I'm sitting in India, right? My cookie gets stolen somehow using probably a cross-site or whatever, right? And that cookie is being used somewhere in America. I'll receive the same cookie from two different geographical locations. That probably a cause of concern. So that's what we've tried to create here. And on a Kibana dashboard, we can actually map out where all these access was being done. Right? You can see all these hotspots. The dark red ones means the maximum access was.
So this is for like one source IP, you can say like or one something which is coming in. So like multiple public IPs coming in, but similar type of cookies, right?
So this is what was being done. So this is what third use case. So we can again create a change rule which says, okay, if my IP is different or my country is different and based on a single cookie, right, I can alert it to it. So that is one use case that we tried.
So you are removing the users who are using proxies, huh?
Definitely, we don't want people using BitTorrent and Tor and online and onion rings.
Okay.
So any questions? I mean that's we're done from our side. Any questions we're open to?
Usually you are indexing the data and you are getting alert from Elastic.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I think you have so many users. Like you can't be instant. Like by the time he books, so again you're logging, taking log, indexing will take time.
So if you have a good cluster like what we're using, we have almost a 16 to 20 node cluster that we're using. This log comes out to us instantly.
So it's not like we are pumping hundreds of logs into just one system. We have
You have to have a
distributed it
cluster,
amongst
right? I
several
mean,
systems.
once you're scaling, you have to scale the system. Elastic, is very easy to scale.
Obviously, we can't just filter out public logs, which is like a large amount of
For
data into one
pumping
system.
the logs, are you using any framework for that distributed? Or
So
not?
Logstash, just log ng, Logstash
No.
you can use.
So these are all listeners. You are making custom push
We do have custom
So
log
syslog
formats.
ng is sitting there on our systems, which is sending out the data.
So we're using it as a listener and a receiver, I mean transmitter as well, transmitting that to Elastic as well.
Which client use?
Syslog ng.
Syslog NG.
Syslog ng basically says, okay, I'll take your log file, read it continuously on a differential basis, and then keep pumping that out probably to another system, to a file, whatever type of input you
So that
expect
just
on
picks
the
up your
other end.
log, chucks it, Logstash filters it if you want any filtering, and then it just chucks it to Elastic. You can also chuck it directly to Elastic and filter it at that
That
end.
is supposed to be installed on every system.
Right.
Right.
So obviously you need
Or
to ship
every
your
system
log
which
out.
is on your public facing, where you want your logs coming.
Yeah.
You're doing something very similar to what Logly does in collecting and all
Yeah,
that.
Right.
yeah.
Are they also, just out of curiosity, are they also on Elastic?
I am not sure. The only reason that I looked at them. The only reason is that they want your data and they want it publicly uploaded. So I wasn't very comfortable with that.
So one
So
of the
they wanted the logs to be uploaded to their server, which I was like, okay, I
So
can't do
one
that.
of the benefits of using ElastAlert, why we ventured into ElastAlert was, since it's Python based, we are very familiar with Python, right? The rule types I showed you, cardinality, chains type, you can also create your own rule types. Obviously, these rule types might not suffice to your needs. You can create new alert types. So there's a complete doc that's there. You can refer to that. You just need to create a class, need to specify what I need to monitor, set an alert and then fire it off. So that's very easy to do in ElastAlert. So that's why we went
Is
for it.
Elastalert free or?
It's
open
free.
source,
It's open
right.
source. Just download it and
It's available on GitHub on